Alrighty, good morning to everyone. Here listening to the throw-in right here on the TNC Sports Talk YouTube channel. We want to welcome you guys into another episode as we get ourselves organized for the morning. Kind of a little different atmosphere. Used to throughout the week, kind of been doing shows a little more later on in the morning, afternoon. Got everything finally caught up and um got everything working this morning. So we're excited to be being able to come on here in the morning, get their stuff, get their work done out of the way with to move on for the rest of the day. It is Thursday, January 26th, 2023. And we move closer yet again to the Royal Rumble this weekend. We move closer to the conference championship games on Sunday. But before we could even talk about any of that, I think that an element of talking about last night, AEW Dynamite last night, um, one of the reasons that got me hooked on and interested and invested in talking about AEW Dynamite was because of a particular match between Mark Briscoe and Jay Lethal. And so, I don't know, was unaware of the details between these two men in the ring, but we knew the message that they provided. Okay. And the ultimate goal was for AEW, and you saw it throughout the show, was the being able to honor and pay, do a kind of a tribute show to the late Jay Briscoe, who passed away last week. And so yesterday's match card was kind of very impactful. For me, I was looking at the match card, and we talked about it a little bit yesterday, and I thought, hey, it was going to be a good match card, and it was, but it kind of felt like a normal show. So I tuned in yesterday in specifically for this match. They could have had this match on Ring of Honor. They could have had this match, had it be paid for. But the fact that they were capable of going to the levels and extents that they were able to go to get this match on AEW Dynamite for everybody, I think is just something that's that much more special. So last night, main event was Mark Briscoe taking on Jay Lethal. And like I said, and knowing the understanding of why this match has taken place. These guys are good friends. They've had incredible feuds in the past. But last night was very different. Last night, we had to see these two men go at it, not because they didn't like one another, not because they were trying to fight for the title or anything like that. They had to go out there putting on their best performance, the performance that they could remember for a lifetime, because they wanted to, because of honoring Jay Briscoe. And you felt it. The arena was tense. I know the match was, hard heading from the get go, and I think that that's the only way you had to go. There was only one option, and that was only to go 100% nonstop, full action, give it all you got, and leave it out all in the ring. Okay, you could see it. I saw it a little bit more in Jay's, facial expressions. This was an emotional match, and it kind of took me back for a moment. I haven't seen a lot of this, a lot of events like this where you would have to, where you're dedicating matches and honoring matches because of a particular person. And the first person that dates back to me has to be when Eddie Guerrero passed away. I say about what, 19 years ago. And that one was very, of such a very emotional moment in professional wrestling, that you saw multiple people in multiple wrestling programs honor Eddie Guerrero. And so, throughout the week, you've seen, people wear, Jay Briscoe shirts, t-shirts, memory t-shirts that are available here. Ring of Honor release. You can go to prowrestlingtees.com/demboys to get your shirts, or you could go, I think it's shophonor.com to get those shirts. You saw a lot of those being worn last night. You see those armbands for Jay, the same things that you've seen for Eddie. But last night was a moment, I think, for me, that where, if it kind of brought me back memories from when, because I mean, I was a little, I was, I was about, what, maybe 9, 10 years old when Eddie passed. And that was, I think, for me at the time, I didn't quite know or understand exactly what happened or what that meant or how that meant, went through. And so the question, it wasn't a question, it was the moment during that time was very emotional, and that really and it really impacted the world of professional wrestling. Well, when you have Jay, and knowing, the hard work, the dedication, the loyalty that they've had to Ring of Honor, traveling across the world, and just leaving an impact. I think that's the moral thing, right? Leaving the impact for, on a wrestling industry where there's thousands of people, and you're in the midst of your career. You're currently, you were currently Ring of Honor tag team champions, and then the life gets sucked out of you because the loss of Jay. It kind of, it shows a lot. So, very emotional match. That's one of the reasons why I initially took the time to watch AEW Dynamite. And overall, it wasn't a bad show. I kind of quite enjoyed it. I thought everything was kind of mellowed out. I feel like for the first time getting a chance to watch AEW Dynamite, things were smooth. Seeing things just played out as they happened. They were segments divided up. There wasn't anything extra that you had to worry about, you know, happening along. Like, every segment from the beginning, from the opening bell to the final match and the final farewell, was there to kind of every segment had a different story to tell, and you focused on that individual segment. You weren't throwing in, different storylines just because. And for me, that really, kind of made it easier to watch. Now, I did not get a chance to watch Darby Allin defend his TNT championship match, because I didn't watch all of it, but I made a determination that I was going to check in and tune into a couple of all the good matches. So got a chance to watch the Jericho Appreciation Society win, defeat not defeat, but they ended up competing last night. So I got a chance to watch them in the opening bell. You also watched Jungle Hook, who defeated Ethan Page and Matt Hardy, in a kind of weird ending. Hey, Ethan Page wanted that tag, ended up costing them the match when Jeff Hardy was ready for the twist of faith. And then we saw Bryan Danielson and Brian Cage do battle. And, if you what I enjoyed about this feud between last night between MJF and Bryan Danielson is that not only the announce team, which they've done a great job explaining into depth, into detail about you know how big this feud is starting to get, but they also gotten a chance to but you could tell in the match that Brian Cage legitimately was out to hurt Bryan Danielson, right? Obviously, Danielson and MJF are looking in just a few weeks to get to a Iron Man match for that AEW World Championship match. MJF wants to intentionally hurt Bryan Danielson so that because he's, I guess, in the sense, scared that Danielson can outlast him. And so one thing after the other, and you get medical involved, and it brings the story and the feud just that much more richer. And I'm starting. I told you this at the beginning. Last couple of weeks, I haven't been impressed with the feud, with the title reign that MJF has had. I'm not very big about this feud between MJF and Bryan Danielson. Um, and but things are starting to work out for me. I'm starting to find a little bit of room for appreciation for this feud. So we'll talk a little bit more about that this morning. I want to understand though the direction. One of the questions coming out of last night, and after everything being said and done, I kind of want to understand the direction moving forward with Mark Briscoe. He currently holds the Ring of Honor tag team titles. You know, um, there's going to be probably some time where he's going to probably be given, if needed, to take off, cope with his family, do what he needs to do. I wonder how Ring of Honor is going to handle that and the championship run. And also, throughout, I mean, I know they've had single careers a little bit here and there, but they're mainly known. Mark Briscoe's mainly known for his tag teaming time, with his brother, and so one of my things coming out is what's going to be next moving forward. When we had the passing of Eddie, he also, credibly had a singles career going for him at the time. And so you wonder, okay, Chavo could have his own singles career. Eddie, he would have been fine with it without him. Mark now is going to go into a singles career. And I wonder if that's going to affect him. How long will that last? And what's the direction moving forward? Because these are two people who lived and breathed and bled for professional wrestling. They depended on this sport to pay for food on the table, medical bills. They had friends and families. Um, that everything is now altercating and changing. Just is that just what is the new direction? And we're not going to probably know anytime soon. And the one thing that I can be certain, okay, is that Mark, okay, last night, especially last night, the one thing I can be sure is that he's going to go do what he does best, whether that's in the ring or that's not. One thing I can relate to, Mark, and some people, I was reading some of the comments and they're like, why, although this is a great match, go on and cope. This is take the personal time and take care of yourself. Well, a lot of people cope in different ways. And I think the best way, which explained in this match between Jay Lethal and Mark Briscoe, was that their coping mechanism was just going out there and doing what they did best. It is difficult when you lose someone to go out there and continue to perform even a week after of losing someone. I remember, you know, when 10 years ago when I lost my uncle. Wasn't just as close as a person he was to me, I had to go back out there just that week, to to wrestle, in high school in a match, which was very emotional, heartfelt, as well. You know, I think that's, another source of thrive, energy, motivation, encouragement, inspiration that brings the best out of you. Um, Sometimes it's also a distraction. When you get a chance to sit around, and mourn and just grief over the loss, sometimes it could get to you on another level. I know last year, just 2 days after my birthday, I get a phone call saying that my grandfather passed. Now, another person in my life that was really close to me. I could say I was closer to him as a grandchild more than anything else, more than any other grandchild. And what gets to me is that I was also around the time where there were complications going on in our TNC Sports Talk program, and there was, a lot of, we weren't, there was times where we weren't doing episodes, times where we were, and I tried to use these shows to help kind of fill in, that occupation while, there was a grieving period. But because we weren't using because we weren't doing the show on a daily basis, there was a little bit of, it was a little bit difficult to, mourn. It was a little longer process. So whatever the process is for Mark moving forward, obviously, just like the rest of the friends and families of him, and the wrestling world, we wish him, the best of luck. We don't, like I said, I don't know, what's the proper way, that he should take. Maybe he should take time off. I don't know the proper how they would handle, the Ring of Honor tag team titles. If he, I would like to think, give him a few weeks, give him a month, or give him two, um, and then maybe, just has as much of a badass that the Briscoes were, especially Mark. Maybe let him carry those tag team titles and fight as one person for two people. That's what I would think. Um, and I wouldn't put past Ring of Honor to maybe allow that to happen. So, the direction of the Ring of Honor tag team titles we'll look into deeply, a little deeper session, as it unfolds, as we get further away, from this honorary moment. But listen, like I said, Matt, last night, um, tuning in to AEW Dynamite specifically for this reason has done a couple of things. One, it has enlightened me about where AEW is at. It And the product that is being put out there, the storylines that are being, delivered and displayed, also being able to, um, finally enjoy it. For the longest time, AEW is one of the tough products to get into. So to be able to actually sit back, enjoy it, actually wanting to tune in, for example, Friday night, knowing that Hangman Page will probably be taking on, Wheeler Yuta. So it's kind of encouragement. Hey, I want to go ahead and tune into Friday night at Rampage. Um, but it's kind of been difficult to get into full swing of watching AEW just in general, just in general. So we'll talk a little bit more about AEW, this morning. I want to talk about, get ready, give you some injury updates, upcoming the conference championship games. There's a couple more. We do get closer to the Royal Rumble here in just what, a little over 48 hours, and then the conference games this weekend. So I want to come in and talk to you a little bit about that. Um, Cincinnati Reds will give you that report and the local news and updates. A conversation coming out. I was listening to some radio yesterday, doing my errands, and the big conversation coming out of sports in Cincinnati is that the Bengals are now being considered the bad guys. So I guess I kind of want to touch base with that and give you my thoughts and opinion. And are they really bad guys in this scenario? So I don't know where the show's going to take us. It's quite a little different show this morning, finally being able to get up and do a show at 6 o'clock in the morning. But here we are. So stay tuned. Thank you guys for tuning in. If you guys are watching us live on YouTube, Facebook, Twitter, thank you. And don't forget to download us and take us on the road wherever you go. All right, quick timeout. Come on back and talk to you more about AEW Dynamite. Thank you guys for tuning into the Throw-In right here on the TNC Sports Talk YouTube channel. All right, we want to go ahead and give a big shout out to StreamYard Studios, the proud home of the TNC Sports Talk YouTube channel. StreamYard Studios, where you could create podcasts, videos, host virtual business meetings, and even conduct interviews. Check out the free version today at StreamYard.com. All right, 6:28 here on the Throw-In, a few minute delay start, getting back into the morning routine, and not quite used to it. You get used to it, and then you have all the schedule throw off since last Thursday. I'm getting a couple of shows in throughout the day and coming back in the morning. I'm still early, I guess, tired. Not tired, just the body doesn't move. It takes a while to get up and moving. Alrighty, AEW Dynamite last night. A couple of things we find out in regards to that. The Bryan Danielson and Brian Cage did battle. I think this was the mid card show, take you at the end of hour number one into hour number two of their program yesterday. Obviously, the intent I think was clear. Brian Cage got paid to go hurt Bryan Danielson, especially directing into the shoulder. And the idea is to kind of, hey, let's injure him to the point where he's unable to compete um, in that Iron Man match coming up in a few weeks. There's a MJF shows that he is most definitely in some sort of feared when he is not in control of Bryan Danielson. And as their match starts, getting, set for, this coming up Revolution, I believe at the beginning of February. I'll have to check my dates on that. But, we know with a healthy MJF and a healthy Bryan Danielson, on paper, that Bryan Danielson, I think, walks away as victorious. This is an Iron Man match, 60 minutes in the ring. Whoever could score the most pinfalls goes on and captures the AEW World Championship. Well, obviously, Bryan Danielson has that fight in him. All right, he's done this before. He's done this in the WWE. You go back to days when he's had to, fight against the authority, and he's had to deal with obstacles after obstacles after obstacles again. Well, he's going through that in these series of matches over the last few weeks, having to go through some of the best that has ever stepped in the ring, continuing into next week where he faces Timothy Thatcher, a big fighter, knowing his his fighting days and his pit days in the WWE and NXT, remember some highlights that he has strictly against guys like Tommaso Ciampa, who's another big dangerous person. So when you could get Bryan Danielson, when you have the power, and MJF has the power, right? As AEW World Champion, he has the power to do what he needs to do to get his opponents in the right shape mindset to defeat, to have the upper advantage of his opponent in the match by putting Bryan Danielson through hell. MJF thinks that. But see, Bryan Danielson is not just a regular, professional wrestler who goes in and competes weekly and goes home. You start relaying in history and his career, and you start going back and understanding that he's been through a plenty of these matches before. He's had to go. Remember WrestleMania where Bryan Danielson's had to defeat Triple H in order at the beginning of WrestleMania. Only this was before they went 2 nights. He had to defeat Triple H and then go on to face, just to earn his opportunity to go on and face Batista and Randy Orton for the WWE Championship. What MJF is only aggravating Bryan Danielson. Unfortunately, like, this is beyond stretch. He is aggravating the holy fuck out of Bryan Danielson. He's shown last night, and I think it was key that the camera and he was being interviewed about his condition, because yes, there is a shoulder, regardless if the shoulder injury is real or it's not, you have a person who's been seriously damaged in the ring. It's supposed to put him down and maybe put him in a potential spot where he can't compete, and he keeps getting back up. Now, I would still tell you and still would encourage that Bryan Danielson, at any percentage, health percentage, he could still compete and he can still defeat on paper. I would take my odds against MJF. Unfortunately, I don't see this feud conclusion, here at Revolution, where Bryan Danielson gets the AEW World Championship. It's a tough case because I see that MJF needs more time. Okay. And he honestly deserves more time for what he's gone through to, with that AEW World title. But then Bryan Danielson, after going through hell and back, he also deserves some time. But honestly, I'm still thinking, I will like to see I like to see MJF win, and I think that's what's going to happen. I think the breaking point is that either it's going to be tied and they continue this out moving forward, or MJF gets that upper advantage. But either way, I think for as an AEW fan, you get at the absolute best. You really push Bryan Danielson to the peak of his abilities, and you finally show that display. He's had some great matches. He's been through a couple very intense and great feuds. He's a fighter, but not to this level. And I think both men will bring the best out of one another. I mean, MJF is already, after throwing on numerous of opponents, and like I said, coming up next week, he has to go on and face another tough opponent. Will be making his AEW debut in Timothy Thatcher. We'll talk about a little bit of that next week. Another thing coming out of AEW, okay, Hangman Adam Page, Jon Moxley. We know the story. Jon Moxley knocked out Hangman. Put Hangman to sleep to win the first bout. A couple weeks ago in Cincinnati, Hangman was able to return the favor, and now the score is settled, 1-1 each. And Hangman made it very clear. They're in Dayton, Ohio next week. He will like a match with John Moxley to see just who the better man is. Now, I think here's the most important thing I want to find out afterwards is that who needs this victory the most? John Moxley has already established himself through different promotions and through his longevity, what he's capable of presenting inside and out of the ring. Just like Bryan Danielson, John Moxley is a ruthless, fighter, and really will not go down until you really have to put him out. The problem is that if he goes on and wins the match, what does Moxley gain? Okay, maybe other than personal vendettas over winning a match in against Hangman Page, especially since the series is tied. The first round, I understand. Hangman wanted a rematch. You're granted, I would understand. But now this third time around, what would honestly benefit a guy like John Moxley to winning this match? And this is where I say Hangman is more important in this situation, because Hangman needs to, I think, is more important to win this match next week than Moxley is, because listen, if Hangman goes on and wins, and then he's going to be leveled up at the same rate, being viewed just as good as Moxley, right? His rankings goes up and all that stuff. What? But if he loses, I feel like if Hangman loses, he becomes an afterthought. And after dropping the AEW World Championship last year, never really been given an opportunity to recapture that title that he lost. It wasn't like he was a number one contender afterwards, to going on and not having a great year in my books. So I think, I'm going to early predictions. I think it would be ashamed if Moxley wins this match next Wednesday and Hangman doesn't, because I think there's more on the line for Hangman and moving forward with him, other than if he loses, you kind of wonder what direction do you possibly go into. All right, 6:39. Let's take a break and come on back. Still more to talk about in the world of sports, including professional wrestling. We'll stay tuned. Don't go anywhere. You guys are listening to the Throw In here on the TNC Sports Talk YouTube channel. As I mentioned earlier in the program, and I just want to keep on promoting this because all the proceeds goes to the Briscoe's family. You guys could get your memorial t-shirts today. Head on over to prowrestlingtees.com/themboys, or head on over to shophonor.com for all that information. Highly recommend it. Reach for this guy. Great AEW. I think it was a really good AEW. One thing I missed doing that we were doing last year was kind of rating our shows. And I'm thinking about doing that again here. I was kind of going through some of the lists that we had at the beginning through the folder, like match of the year, wrestler of the year. I was kind of just seeing what we were given. We had like our top 10 male wrestlers of the year, matches of the year, pay-per-view of the year, kind of just, reminiscing back on little things that we were doing. And, I was kind of like, let's do that again. So, I'm gonna take some time, probably within the next, over the weekend, and kind of look through the past, and at the end of the month, next week, sometime next week, we'll share with you our thoughts of some categories in that standpoint. So I'm actually excited to give you that kind of, continuing on, compare it from last year, see just where I'm at, and bring it into this year. So I'm excited to do that. All right. We get, like I said, we get closer to WWZ's Royal Rumble coming up this Saturday. And man, there's a lot. There's 5 matches, for what we know. All right, there's 2 Royal Rumble matches. And as I mentioned to you guys, the Royal Rumble matches are going to be the first 2 matches, I believe, that are going to be announced as we start the road to WrestleMania, which starts this Saturday. And yeah, we still have to get through tomorrow night on SmackDown, where I think the only thing coming out of it right now, and I'll have to look, is that the Bloodline don't want to see, or Roman Reigns and particularly don't want to see Sami Zayn until Saturday. So, we've already explained our concerns, our issues for WrestleMania. Now it's time to make our eyes set for the Royal Rumble. But there's other questions that happened on Monday night that I think we need to kind of bring to the surface for just a moment. One is realistically Austin Theory, who currently has the United States Championship, and I guess the question has it is, how does he deserve the respect from the locker room? And I think this is more of a broad, general question for his overall career so far. Is that, does he deserve the respect from the entire WWE universe? I remember I was probably one of the only guy in the group at the time that was in favored for Austin Theory. At the beginning when he got brought up to the main roster, yeah, he was very annoying. He's kind of one of those jockey annoying thorns that just keep on pricking you in the side. When you want him to go away, he was always around in this sense. But you still can't deny what he's gone through and what he's been able to go through, regardless if the WWE or Vince McMahon has given it to him on a silver platter. He's had a couple of great moments. He's still, for a person maybe at the time his size, his fatigue, where he was at in his career, to go toe to toe for at least a solid 5-10 minutes with Brock Lesnar, I think is an accomplishment. To be trusted to get in the ring with an amateur Pat McAfee, and no disrespect to Pat McAfee, but there's a lot of trust that puts into a actual, professional wrestler when you get into a ring with someone who doesn't wrestle on a daily basis. And then to go captivate that United States Championship, to go on and win the Money in the Bank briefcase, regardless if it was a short period of time. Now, I get it. Let's laugh about that for a moment. Let me press the right ones. Because Austin Theory, whoever won the Money in the Bank, I think you ought to know that it wasn't an ideal win. I mean, you're not going to go see, if you win the Money in the Bank, that gives you an opportunity to cash in that briefcase at any time, any place, anywhere. You go for the top of the food chain, which means you Austin Theory would have gone for Roman Reigns. Now, maybe at the time that he was given the opportunity to, could you have seen Austin Theory dethrone Roman Reigns? Most likely not. But, listen, anyone can give you the opportunity by putting you out there and putting you in these great situations, these beneficial situations, right? If, I could be called up tomorrow and said, hey, listen, I want you to air your show on ESPN TV. The world will see you 6 to 8. Great stuff. Okay, great. That's my opportunity. I'm given that opportunity. It is another thing to take advantage of that opportunity. See, if I get asked, or if I was like, all right, this show is going to be used on an actual ESPN Sports Channel, whatever, FS1, that's great. That's my opportunity to get myself out there, get myself known. But it's another thing to take advantage of that opportunity and put out a great show, right? Actually entertain people and make a name for yourself. So if someone was to come to me and say, hey, listen, for the next month and a half or the next 3 months, your show is going to be aired on, FS1 for the entire world to see, then there is a bit different. It's a little bit different approaching this, okay, in that sense. Well, what I mean by that is that you would kind of, all right, let me cross my T's, dot my I's, do a little bit more extra work, and make this a legitimate as best as possible, right? For Austin Theory, he's done the same thing. He was presented with opportunities, and I think it goes back around to saying that a wrestler, a professional athlete, if you're on the screen week in and week out, it takes you about 12 to 15 weeks before the WWE, before the universe determines if you're worth being watched or not. Okay. And yes, Austin Theory was thrown into some situations, but you know what? He was that antagonist who you wanted to watch, but you didn't like watching. And it's taken some time to get used to it. I get it. Taking a little bit time to get used to more than others. My thing is with Austin Theory, okay, is that I think he's really been working hard. For the first half of last year, he was given a lot of things. He was given everything. All right, he had to really step up and take throw a hold of things, and the WWE, it's kind of like what the WWE usually does. They spoon feed talent into the fans, saying, hey, this is the guy, he's the next guy, and you're gonna like him regardless or not. The back half of the year was really difficult for Austin Theory because all that stuff that he was given to, he had to back it up in the ring. And maybe, he was there, maybe he wasn't there, but he's had to really step up, grow up, and become that, villain very quickly. And you know what? He's done a damn good job at doing it. Okay. One of the things we'll talk about in hour number 2 with the Bengals, and the question is, are the Bengals the bad guy in the playoffs right now? Is that you like the bad guys at the end of the day, and it's the bad guys that make your good guys look better. Okay, Austin Theory, although he's the bad guy, and you don't like Austin Theory, and a lot of people still don't like Austin Theory, and he rubs a lot of people the wrong way. You watch him because if it wasn't for him, there's no Seth Rollins right now. If it wasn't for him, there's no Bobby Lashley. The bad guys are the ones that make things relevant, and they make the good guys relevant. All right. They give you the reason to root and to cheer and to, you're doing something right. And I mean, you go back and you look at all the bad guys, and they come in all shapes, ways, and forms. JBL, a prime example. Edge was a bad guy, and he played it pretty dang well. Randy Orton was a bad guy. Andre the Giant at once was a bad guy, even the immortal Hulk Hogan. And they come, like I said, they come in all shapes, different shapes, forms, ways, sizes, whatever not. And Austin Theory is doing a good job for what he's given. Okay. And I think if you're able to execute in the ring and you're able to not take care of business, but able to get over and also get over by capturing gold. If he's not getting over, why does he still have the United States Championship around his waist? If he's not getting over, why is he competing in the main event against Bobby Lashley back on Monday? Why is he in the Royal Rumble? Why is he talked about if he's not over? I think Austin Theory deserves the attention, and not the attention, but the respect. Okay, he may not be at the caliber as Bobby Lashley and Seth Rollins. Bobby Lashley and Seth Rollins has years, okay, on the screen in the WWE over Austin Theory. You got to remember, Austin Theory is 2 years into the wrestling, at least into the WWE on television, promoting the product. Seth Rollins, Bobby Lashley has been wrestling for 15 plus years. Seth Rollins has been wrestling for at least over a decade. I mean, Austin Theory just hasn't had the time. And everyone loves right now Bobby Lashley. Everyone loves Brock Lesnar. Everyone loves Seth Rollins. Okay. And Austin Theory is kind of that person that's always been in the mix this past entire year. He's always been that thorn that you hate that just won't go away. That's in the mix with Seth Rollins, Bobby Lashley, Brock Lesnar. You see him a year ago, he was doing intercounting with Brock Lesnar. And yet again, here we go, finding him again. The thing is that, yes, he's a bad guy, but he helps everyone else look good. He sells. All right. He protects himself. He makes the good guys look good, even if he wins. So there's no real reason why Austin Theory shouldn't be given the respect. And I think, it has to be, at least given the chance. There probably, I have seen more Austin Theory acceptance over this past year, but I still think that there needs to be more. He deserves more. There's no real, I haven't found the case of why he doesn't deserve a little bit more respect for what he does in and out of that ring. I mean, listen for a second. He's accomplished a lot. He's had to go on and face a lot, some pretty tough challenges that he's overcame during the last year. He's had a pretty incredible year. I don't see why he wouldn't be considered respectable in the locker room. Now, if he goes off in the locker room and his persona and the way he carries himself is the same way in the ring that it is in the backstage area, then I guess that's one thing. But I haven't seen or heard any reports about that, in my honest opinion. So I think the WWE Universe needs to give a little bit more respect and honorary to Austin Theory, a little bit more credit than what he's done. All right, our number one's complete. We'll come back with some local sports news, talks about some Cincinnati Reds and what's going on over there. Thank you guys for tuning in to the Throwing with Justin. That's me. All right. If you guys are watching us on YouTube, Facebook, Twitter, thank you. Getting part of the comments and chat along with us. If not, don't be afraid to download us on audio streaming platforms. We'll talk about that next. Our number one's complete. Our number two is coming up here on the TNC Sports Talk YouTube channel. Alrighty, good morning. Hour number two here on the Throw-In, given to you thanks to Spreaker. if you guys are creating your own podcast and want to lay it up and get monetized and earn some money and distribute across a lot of platforms, and I mean a lot of platforms, Spreaker is the place to check out. All right, that's the perfect pound. You upload multiple podcasts on your account. It's you get paid for people listening. Insert ads there and really just make it this 10 times better through Spreaker. I know I have it thanks to Steve Barber over there at the Armchair Booking Wrestling Podcast, introducing it to me. And listen, it's a great product. Every episode I upload just a few clicks of a button. It's going out across Facebook, Twitter, YouTube, Apple Podcasts, Google Podcasts, Spotify, iHeartRadio, Spreaker, anywhere you listen to podcast at, we're on, thanks to Spreaker. Great tool to use. Our number 2 is given to you thanks to Spreaker.com. We'll be back again tomorrow to wrap up a week worth of sports, talking to you guys, giving our predictions about the Royal Rumble, which is coming up on Saturday. Also giving you our predictions about the AFC NFC Championship games coming up between the Cincinnati Bengals and the Kansas City Chiefs for the AFC. And then also you have the San Francisco 49ers taking on the Philadelphia Eagles. And I'll get to that in just a little moment in this hour, because I want to talk to you guys and give you guys an update about injuries and status. But we always got to give our due diligence around the world of local sports. And I got a chance to, it's kind of hard. There's a lot of sports teams out here. A lot of sports teams out here. I'm just trying to find my notes, so give me a quick second here. Had everything all loaded up. All right. So what do we know about the local sports teams right now, today, this morning, Thursday, January 26, 2023? Well, we do know that the Bearcats do not play all week. They won't be playing until Saturday against Houston at 2:15. All right, Kentucky Wildcats, who actually won back on Tuesday, will look to play Kansas 8 p.m. on Saturday night. All right. Cincinnati Cyclones began a 3-game series with Newfoundland Growlers. And last night was just probably not the greatest night for ECHL hockey for the Cyclones. They dropped 6-1 in a loss with the Growlers putting up 3 shots in the first period. Now, I actually got a chance, and I didn't know about this. You could actually watch all hockey on TV. There's a subscription for it. I'm not paying that much. What I was been interested in, I found out last year, and I don't take advantage of it, is that I get a chance to watch or listen to hockey. Now, just like basketball and sometimes football, it's difficult to understand what's going on back and forth and getting the details for it. But, this is going to be a tough series because they take on the Growlers 2 more times, Friday and Saturday, as they present Star Wars night. They're going to have a very busy weekend for the Cyclones. And things aren't looking good to get things off. And it got very kind of a little bit tense last night after the game, where both the Growlers and the Cyclones standing on their side of the ice rink, staring each other down, kind of starting looking into potentially pushing and shoving. So if you don't have tickets yet, get tickets now. I'm actually this, because this is gonna roll over into Friday and Saturday night. I'd recommend going out to this game if you're looking for some really good action this weekend. I would say to kick off your weekend, head out to a Friday night's game. I think you'll see most of the action on Friday, a little bit on Saturday, but I think by the time Saturday comes, everyone wants to just get out of there and go on to the next, next team, next set of games. So Friday and Saturday, puck drops at 7:30 against the Newfoundland Growlers. Now, listen, ECHL, not too much about hockey, but ECHL, the Newfoundland Growlers are at the top of the North. They're one of the best teams right now in their league of hockey. All right. There it wouldn't be, and Cyclones are having to face the best of the best. And, maybe it's a little salty. I was listening to it last night, and I think it was a clear image. You go lose 6-1 on the first game. Okay. You got 2 more games afterwards in in about 48 hours. All right. You got to get yourself ready for anything and everything in this sense. What I say by that is that the Cyclones, you can't allow someone to come in, put up 6 points, make a mediocrity of your team at home, okay, and let them get away with that. All right. So I think last night's standoff at the end of the game was more in design to say, hey, listen, you guys may have won last night, but come Friday and Saturday, we will be ready to play. And don't think of us as a chip, as a walk through the park. You're gonna come in here onto our ice rink, and we're gonna give you a piece of our mind. We're gonna give you a hill, and if you're gonna win the next 2 games, you're gonna sure damn well earn it. So, little intense games going on over there. Xavier Musketeers took on UConn last night, winning a close matchup, 82-79, a very big matchup for them. They had Musketeers are having some defensive issues. They're able to adjust and solve that last night's game. They move on to 17-4, 9-1 in conference, which is just listen, they're keeping it up. The thing is, solely, Boehm 21 points, 6 for 12 at the free throw, 5 for 17 for 3-point conversions. Colby Jones 20 points, big impact, over half the points right there for the Musketeers in their victory. 8 for 16 at the free throw line, 3 for 6 at the 3 points. This is great momentum because they're going to head into the weekend facing Creighton, 12:15 on Saturday. But this is great momentum heading into a tough part of the schedule. If you're the Musketeers, you don't want to let up. You got to keep on putting on that gas pedal, moving forward. And this is coming. They're going to come up to be a great couple games moving forward. I already talked to you guys about the Bearcats and the Wildcats playing this weekend as well. Cincinnati Reds continue their caravan week. Today's Thursday, so they will be in Huntington, West Virginia, and the East Tour Mall or East Tour will be displayed there at the Huntington Mall from 4:30 to 6:30 Eastern Standard Time, which means it'll be filled with TJ Friedel, Nick Northcutt, Casey Leguimina, Tommy Thrall, Nick Kahn, and Mr. Red. Now, keep in mind that both the South and the North Tour will have one tomorrow and then 2 on Saturday. So as that continues, we'll kind of break that a little bit more into it. I think at the beginning of the week, I was a little upset with the people who have attended, not the fans, but the Reds players who have attended. And I'm not upset with the Reds players. I'm upset with the amount of thought that the owners have put into this travel. This is designed to get people pumped up, excited, ready to go for spring training, for the regular season. And you think that, if you can't do any more wrong with the organization, from the Castellinis, that you at least put out a good product there. This could have been, but we don't see guys like Joey Votto or Will Myers or the Castellinis out there. And it's unsettling to think that this is just the way that Reds do business right now. And this is just another disappointing thing for the organization. And it really kind of impacts, in my opinion, exactly how the season is gonna prolong. It also shows, hey, listen, we have to rely on a lot of these good guys, to really, a lot of these younger guys to really fill in and step in, which is they haven't really created a name for themselves yet. You take a look at this list, right? You take a look at Nick Northcutt. You take a look at not Corky Miller, Austin Hendrick. All right. They're not bad guys. They're good players, but they just haven't developed themselves yet at the major league, level. Jose Barrero, the biggest problem coming out of him was he was injured last year. TJ Friedel, he's not just, unfortunately, these are young guys with Alejo Lopez and Spencer Steer, TJ Friedel. These are all guys coming up for, 1 or 2 years already in the big leagues. They haven't really done nothing spectacular to make a name for themselves. And, you really don't have motivation out on this road, which the whole design is to get people excited, wanting to come down and listen and watch the Reds play baseball. Like you said, throwing in a guy like Joey Votto or Will Myers to kind of pick his brain of how he's going to be playing in Cincinnati or how he's capable of making himself up from his previous years and not doing so great, or asking Joey Votto the questions before, he officially ends up retiring, or even Jonathan India in that circumstance. I mean, this is a guy who I think Jonathan India right now is kind of like your Luis Castillo, who is up there and kind of like your star player at the major league level. So a little disappointing and seeing how the Reds are putting out there on the table. A couple of things that we want to, I guess, talk with is that tonight they will be displaying, MLB Network will be displaying their top 100 list. They kind of went through and presented the top 10 for each position. And, it's just another salt in the wound when we don't see a lot of Reds players in the top 100, in the top 10s, nonetheless top 100s. There's only 2 players that are in the top 10 out of all the positions, and both of them coming out of shortstop. Coming out of shortstop, number 9, Noelvi Marte, and then also coming out number 3, which is also the biggest prospect, Ellie De La Cruz. It's kind of sad. It's kind of sad to see this unfold that way. Unfortunately, you want to see a lot. You want to see more coming from the Reds. I guess I'm going to put it this way: if the Reds are saying, or at least claiming that, listen, we are not going to spend money on veterans. We're going to go back to our roots, invest into our minor league prospects, and build them from the ground up again. And our winning team are going to come from the guys in our minor league, which is great if that process has already kicked into effect. The problem is that we're sitting here in 2023, and you only have 2 of 75, 100 players down there in the minor league system. You only have 2 in the top 100, top 10. I'm going to be interested to seeing the top 100 list, because if you want to have any sort of winning ball club, you need to have at least 3 to 5 players in the top 100. That means your minor league system is not developing players as they should. All right. Okay. So, I mean, if you're going to start from the ground up and you're going to start from the minor leagues and work your way up, then you have to show that you have players down there that have the potential, that are making their way through, and if they're in the top 100, that we can see them coming up to the high level grade baseball teams and move forward to the the main roster. And listen, it goes to show at the same time. I want to remind you that not every team, or not every player that's in the top 100 makes it to the big leagues, but it gives your ratio chance the 10 times better. If you got 10 Reds players in the top 100, you got 1 out of 10. You got a 1 to 10 ratio of having success at least one of those guys are coming into the major leagues. That's the game in the minor leagues right now for baseball. I don't think people understand the game, the strategy that you got to play. You got to risk your chips on the good guys, and no matter how many good guys you got or great performers you got maybe 1 out of 100 players in the minor league system that's going to be a star, that could potentially be a star. And that's not a big number. So, talking about one of your big guys, I want to cut to a break, but coming back, talking about one of the big guys expected to have a big year this year is Hunter Green. And I want to explain why and why he's going to break out, or how he should be an eye out to be a young ace for 2023. Also, we'll come back and with Joey Votto's injuries, we also deal with outfield options. So what are those? More still to come. You guys are listening to The Throw-In here on the TNC Sports Talk YouTube channel. $7:22 on The Throw-In here on the TNC Sports Talk YouTube channel. I want to give a big shout out to Epidemic Sound. Discover your world-class artists, composers, and bands. Find the perfect soundtrack and give your social media accounts the music they deserve. Epidemic Sound is a royalty-free music link. For more information, check out epidemicsound.com. Lost in Translation by Wendy Marcini and Elvin Vanguard. Still waking up this morning. Good morning to everybody. Just trying to catch up on some local news here. One thing I want to go over, I found this interesting. I saw this. You guys could head over, it's on my personal YouTube, Facebook page. But I actually have, they gave out Botchamania fan page, and they kind of went through a segment by segment by segment. And I kind of want to share that with you guys tomorrow, because I thought that was pretty interesting. Sports KDO came out last night. AEW Dynamite. Mark Briscoe defeats Jay Lethal in the main event. After the match, the AEW locker room came out to pay tribute to Jay as well. The tale of the tape between Kevin Owens and Roman Reigns will be discussed tomorrow as we give our predictions. So we got a lot of sports headed this weekend. Coming back to Cincinnati Reds, down talking about the ace pitchers. Hunter Green is one of those guys that we probably should be looking out for. Let's just face it. The Reds pitchers, and especially in that rotation, are a elite young group of guys, and I can't just put my finger on it, to be honest. I don't know what, who, what, when, where, why scenario that but all I do know is that the Reds have really canned their top talented pitchers. You talk about Mike Minor's no longer there. Tyler Mally's no longer there. Luis Castillo got shipped off to Seattle last year. I mean, you really canned the opportunity for Cincinnati to have really great talent, which means now you're relying back from scratch. You're relying on these young 23, 24, 25 year old kids who are still trying to find their own way. They're limited on pitch count. They haven't even gone through Tommy John surgery yet. And, you're relying on them to kind of give you some sort of competition for a postseason run this year. And that's going to be that way for the next couple of years. I kind of wish that, you know, with whatever budget's capable of, you can pick up some sort of veteran. Most likely, if, like I said, if you're going to pick someone up, it's going to be right before the season, like literally days before the season. And then they're not going to be ready for another 6 weeks before you can put them out against in a major league game. And that's going to be a big issue. But, there's some potential that we're seeing out of the Reds rotation. And one guy in particularly is Hunter Green. And there's a couple of reasons why he should be considered in the role as a young ace to watch in 2023. All right. One, because he's kind of forced to be in that position. But two, there's a couple of good things noticeable. Last year, he came up, and he, throwing ripping 100-mile fastballs. His percentage was, he did pitch tracking, pitch tracking recorded with 39 triple digits in the second career start against the Dodgers. Okay. End of season in four starts, one against each of the Reds' 4 divisional opponents. He pitched a 7.79 ERA with 14.5 Ks per nine. All right. Listen, first start of the season, he was throwing 60% of his fastballs at, nearly triple digits, 30% of the sliders. He got lost. Man, what I say by that is that he got off to a great start in the season. All right. He got off to a solid start. And then when he gets lost, with the fastball, and when people could finally catch up to the fastball, they started hitting it. So he had to adjust. He was 0 for 35 in sliders, 48% of sliders moving. He moved halfway through the season, kind of leveling it out. One of the things that he was able to do at the end of the season was come back and be able to control. Hunter Green has the arm, which is fantastic. This is in comparison to Aroldis Chapman. I mean, this is a guy who could throw triple digits any given day in each and every outing, and he has the marks to be a really good ace pitcher. But to be considered an ace pitcher, you have to be able to also control. You don't just have the heat, but you got to be able to control. And that's what Hunter Green has been able to do, is control his at the end of last season. He was able to start controlling his fastball and started being able to mix it up, where he was able to give you a fastball and then slider, and you couldn't tell which one he was going to be more comfortable with. He got very comfortable with that 1-2 punch combination, that when you're up at the plate, he was able to strike out anybody. And that's what we need. We need someone who's capable. All right, you have the heat, maybe less control, but is capable of working on that control. Once you can work on that control, that fastball and the slider, and that those are consistently dominant, then you could go back and forth 50% of the time and be lights out. You're looking at a guy that has the potential to be just as good as Johnny Cueto, to just be good as Luis Castillo, who were at the top as ace pitchers in Cincinnati baseball. And I think the only downfall that I have with all of this, and considering Hunter Green being an ace pitcher right now, is the notion that the Reds are kind of maybe forcing him or anticipating that he's going to be this ace pitcher by opening day. You kind of are forcing him within 2 years to say, hey, get your head out of your ass and figure it out so that you can be our ace, because we need you to be our ace. because no one else down the stream is at that point yet. Nick Lodolo is not at that point yet. And if you had an opportunity at like Vladimir Gutierrez, well, he may very well be in the bullpen as a longevity guy. I mean, Luis Cessa, I don't think he's up at the area, and I think he's a perfect 4 or 5 spot slot holder, maybe even number 2. But I think there's going to be a lot riding on Hunter Green. That can be a good thing, or that can be a bad thing, depending how the season goes. And hopefully, okay, I know injuries really hurt the Reds last year. The last thing you want is Hunter Green to go down with a Tommy John surgery. And that's really just going to put a damper to the Reds season this year. You know, the other problem that the Reds are going to be having here, okay, has to be excuse me, is the outfield. And I don't think it's ever a good conversation when you put Joey Votto in the mix when it comes down to the outfield. Now, I'm not talking about starting Joey Votto out there, in right or left field. But we've talked a little bit yesterday about the injury right now, and that we really are, listen, we're not going to be clear or have a clear understanding of the status of Joey Votto until spring training starts. The Reds organization could actually take a look in depth with him and see what he needs to work on. But with the way that things sound like is that he may be missing some time, or he may be very limited on a lot of things, which means we have to start preparing ourselves for alternatives, because if Joey Votto could at least swing the bat, then we are relying on Joey Votto to be a asset to the lineup, and more so the DH. Okay, the DH right now, I think it's fulfilled with either Joey Votto or Tyler Stevenson. I don't see a lot of them, a lot of the combination right there being both of them being played at the same time. And you may also have to rely on Votto sitting down and resting and being more of a utility guy coming off the bench, which means now that position at first base becomes available. And yes, you could throw Tyler Stevenson in there, and I think Tyler Stevenson, you have Kurt Casale, you also have Austin Romine behind the plate, and I think you could utilize those two guys. But Tyler Stevenson is probably going to get the nod either behind the plate, the designated hitter, or first base. Now, I could see more behind, behind the plate or designated hitter, but I think the Reds should really consider putting Tyler Stevenson at first base for throughout this spring training. The reason why I'm really big about Tyler Stevenson starting first base is because last year he got beat up behind the plate. And I feel comfortable with Kurt Casale. I feel comfortable with Austin Romine behind the plate. And unless you really need Stevenson behind the plate, maybe catching, maybe have him select 1 or 2 pitchers throughout the week, throughout the spring training to only catch 2, and maybe if he's comfortable with catching only to, build that relationship with like Hunter Green, and every time Hunter Green goes out and pitches, then you have Tyler Stevenson in there. But, in reality, right, you pay attention now to the outfield, which means you also have Will Myers, who that's the reason why the Reds brought in Will Myers. It was to help complete the outfield. Well, if Will Myers is being brought down to first base to fill in Votto's spot, I mean, how confident are you with the outfield positions right now? I mean, with Myers and with Myers in right field, you got Jake Farley out there in left, and then you got Nick Senzel out there in center. Nick Senzel is already, injured, and we don't know the status until spring training. Like I said, but then you got guys to rely on: Stuart Fairchild, Spencer Steer, Michael Ciani, Nick Solak out there in right field. And man, this is becoming already a situation or problem before the season is even started. So, the big question that we're going to address and face is how we are going to approach the utility guys off the bench, and how are we going to utilize Joey Votto, and what are our backup options for first base. I think the easy decision to make is to put Will Myers there, because on a day-to-day basis he's comfortable. But then that leaves you the problem with the outfield, right? So is it necessary? And, Votto's injuries have been back, and he has not had a healthy season. And it takes him probably until August or September to really put up some average numbers. So the question I guess I'm looking at is that if Nick Krall can afford to, can we or should we try to at least go after another outfielder? Okay, in the event that Will Myers has to be used, because you could always, develop more on some of these other guys. And then, I just feel like all the way around the board, though, you need just that one extra person. I've always looked at, all right, you need that veteran on the bench to help these younger guys on the field, right? A guy that could play infield. Then you have a guy that could, if you're asking me, okay, if I'm being honest with you, I would ask for a veteran starting pitcher, a veteran infielder, and a veteran outfielder. Get the cheapest you got, just get a veteran. So preferably someone who has been there and that can share the shine light on the younger talent that is currently on the field. That's my opinion. That's where I stand. That's where I think things should happen. So 7:38, we'll come back with our last break. Talk about why are the Bengals the bad guys? Topping up the 7 o'clock hour, heading up to 8 a.m. in this morning on a Thursday. You guys are listening to The Throw-In right here on the TNC Sports Talk YouTube channel. $7:42. We'd like to give a shout out to our good friends over there at Armchair Booking Podcast. Armchair Booking Wrestling Podcast, my mistake. Join Steve Barber and Doreen Davis as they break down news and highlights in professional wrestling. The Armchair Booking Wrestling Podcast is a weekly wrestling podcast found on YouTube and all audio streaming platforms. Go check out their latest episode, Why We Are Friends, at Armchair Booking Wrestling Podcast now. Great series that they're doing, Why We Are Fans. Always great. Love watching them. Armchair Booking Wrestling Podcast. There we go. Alrighty. Just kind of getting a couple things locked in and set this morning. Here wrapping up 7:43. We'll be back again tomorrow at 6 to 8 again to wrap up the week. Give you our thoughts and opinions on what's going to happen over the weekend. And we're going to have a really good weekend in store for you guys. So I am excited. All right. Quickly, before we talk about the Cincinnati Bengals, quick story that I kind of ran into last night. All right. And I'm not going to say that this is a bigger deal than maybe what it needs to be, but Golden State Warriors Stephen Curry ejected for the game last night against the Memphis Grizzlies for throwing a mouthpiece during the game. And you know, I was actually, you know, looking into this, looking at some of the stats. So the Golden State Warriors won 122 to 120 last night, but from a game kind of like a game buzzer, you know, point. And if I pop it up here real quick, I want to talk about it because Stephen Curry was ejected during last night's game against the Grizzlies because he threw his mouthpiece down, and apparently that reached. I was like, no, it's not going to happen. And so, I mean, and for me, I'm like, okay, what just happened? And like I said, if yesterday's scores ever want to pop up, that's where, you know, the connection to Wi-Fi isn't always the greatest, or I had this sitting. You know, I was looking at the, you know, you had, you know, John Morant putting up 29 points, you know, Bane putting up 20. But, all right, I guess this was about because, so from my understanding, and correct me if I'm wrong, you guys basketball fans watch this game. So it was 122 to 120 final game or final score. And it was a game, kind of like a game buzzer. I think Poole put up a 3-point to win the game. I think his second 3-point out of 6 attempts. So he put up a 3-point. I think it was to win the game. And there you go. Stephen Curry, who had an incredible game, putting up 34 points last night, got ejected in the midst of the fourth quarter because he was open, and Klay Thompson did not toss it to him. He ended up tossing it to Poole to making a shot, which ended up missed. So out of frustration, you know, the goal, you know, Curry threw his mouthpiece down to the ground, got it immediately ejected. And you think of these numbers, all right? 34 points for Curry. Thompson put up 24. Poole put up 21. I mean, that's what, 8, 9. So that's 3, 5, 79 points out of the 122 from these three guys alone. And I don't quite necessarily blame Curry for getting upset. Obviously, this was more of a crucial game that they needed to win. And you take a look, and you're facing the Memphis Grizzlies, who are, you know, you're playing the Memphis Grizzlies, and who are right now in second, 31-17 on the season. Golden State is in that playoff tournament bracket right now, 24-24, barely at 500. And it's like, listen, you guys, you ain't playing we're not playing our best basketball. Great momentum. I'm having a thriller game. I'm on a roll. Give me the ball. Let me shoot it. Let me score and help this team come up with an easy win. And I think, you know, there was a little bit of frustration, I believe, and I think it's validated. When you're on a roll, give you the ball. Let him score. Let him do what Curry does best to win. Now, yeah, they won, but, you know, it could have went down a completely different way. So a little thought there on the news. Now we're going to get into the AFC conference championship games and their injuries from each team. And it's not a big list. You know, I think when it comes down to the Eagles, you had Lane Johnson dealing with the groin issue, Avonte Maddox dealing with the toe. For the 49ers, I think this is going to be the big one, and we'll talk a lot about this tomorrow. Christian McCaffrey, Deebo Samuels, and Elijah Mitchell, all questionable for Sunday's game. McCaffrey dealing with the calf injury, Samuel dealing with the ankle, and Mitchell dealing with the growing. Three of your key, because listen, you have your run game with Elijah Mitchell, you have your short pass with Christian McCaffrey, and then you have your long pass with Deebo Samuel. So if Brock Purdy isn't already enough of a challenge itself for the 49ers heading into this excuse me. Yeah. If Brock Purdy isn't already a challenge enough heading into this NFC conference championship game, then man, these three injuries really, really kill. The injuries for the Kansas City Chiefs. A lot of people are looking to return back this week. You got Jarek McKinnon with an ankle, Really Gray Jr. with the toe, and McCole Hardman with the pelvis. And then you also had, we talked a little bit about it yesterday, but Patrick Mahomes returning back from a highly sprained ankle injury. Listen, he says he's looking fine. He's going to be fine. It's Patrick Mahomes. It's the playoffs. Of course, he's going to be fine. And even if he's not going to show it. All right. I think a key thing for the Bengals is that you need to stay on top of their offense. You need to have the top offense of the better offense performance of the game. And I'm just already calling it. For the Bengals, you got Alex Kappa out with ankle injuries. Jonah Williams, knee. Joe Botch for foot. Trey Flowers, hamstring. Ted Karras, knee. And there's a saying, okay, in the NFL and all the sports, especially around the postseason. Microphone issues. Just trying to move it away from my mouth all the way. But there's a saying that if that in the playoffs, the last few games, it's crucial and important that even with an injury that you play through it. Now, injuries heading into Arrowhead Stadium, where it's going to be colder than it was for Buffalo, is going to be a difficult challenge as is. So I was listening to this though yesterday, and it really got me thinking about the Cincinnati Bengals. I was listening to 1530 ESPN here in the local area, and I was listening to them talk about the Cincinnati Bengals and being considered now what they call quote unquote bad guys. Because and they were starting to complain, separate, hey, people are our players are confident, and when it can easily be persuaded as them being cocky. Sorry, throat. The throat has really been bothering me this last hour. A lot of buildup, so I apologize for the throat delays. But legitimately, they were talking about this, and they're talking about how maybe they reacted to the game in Buffalo and present themselves as a little bit cocky, and now they're considered or could be considered the bad guys in the playoffs. And I thought to myself, and I'm like, listen, I do feel the Bengals haven't won anything yet. The Bengals haven't earned anything yet until they win the Super Bowl. And it's great to see them back in the AFC Championship for another year. And a lot of people could have predicted that already for another year. And I'm all for it. But that's the only thing that I've claimed. Kansas City has gone on to win Super Bowls before. All right, with Patrick Mahomes and Andy Reid. The Bengals have not. So, I just don't want them to be too confident where they walk in thinking that they have this game this Sunday against, the Chiefs at Arrowhead, and then they, something happens, goes terribly wrong, and now you end up looking like the laughing stock of the NFL because you were once saying, hey, we had this in the bag. And then, listen, we still got, and Joe Burrow has done a pretty good job making it clear that, hey, we still got a lot of work to do to get through this game. And they do. But, when they were trying to talk about the bad guys, and I talked about a few examples of a bad guy scenario, earlier on in this program this morning. And it really, for me, it gets pushed to say, or push goes to shove, that bad guys are relevant. Right. As I mentioned earlier in this program, if it's not for the bad guys, all right, then there's no good guys. And there's no, you end up appreciating the bad guys because it made that sport more entertaining to endure, into watching. For example, one of my favorite bad guys of all time in professional wrestling is JBL. I watched him on SmackDown, watched him, he's controlled over, he's done a lot of things with The Undertaker. He was the bad guy to John Cena. He was also the bad guy to Shawn Michaels for a period of time. But we hated JBL so much that we love JBL. I've come to the conclusion that, the same thing can be said, and they used the reference yesterday, 1530 in Cincinnati sports radio, used the reference to the New England Patriots. New England Patriots was probably one of the most hated football teams for a decade period of time, when Bill Belichick and Tom Brady was running over everybody and winning Super Bowl after Super Bowl after Super Bowl. Well, you could reflect that back around to the reason why they were so successful, because and the reason why they were bad, because they made, they were relevant. The Cincinnati Reds were not hated at the time because they weren't relevant. They didn't have the players or the team to put together to make them relevant. So going back to this whole bad guy scenario, okay, you reflect back now, okay, me and my, my fan base relationship with JBL. I absolutely hate JBL when he was the bad guy, but because he also made the good guys look good. Austin Theory is a bad guy, and he helps make Bobby Lashley and Seth Rollins look good. New England Patriots were the bad guy, but they also did bring the best out of teams like the Steelers and the Chargers and the Chiefs. My point is that the Bengals, they may be the bad guy, but they are starting to fit into that stepping stone. When you look at the AFC comparisons and who's at the top, Joe Burrow has passed Josh Allen in this sense. It's right now, a lot of people considering it, Patrick Mahomes, Joe Burrow, and then Josh Allen. You always have, in my sense, your baby. I mean, even the Kansas City Chiefs, a few years ago when they started this run, were considered the bad guy, right? The Dodgers are considered the bad guy. Most of everyone else hates the Dodgers because they're that dang good. A lot of people hate the Yankees because they're that dang good. A lot of people hate the Astros because although, you could consider whatever the scandal is, they are, whatever the case may be, they're just that dang good. And when you have a product that is that dang good, people become jealous. People become, they wish they were the Bengals. And yes, when you are a good product like the Bengals are, you have room to talk. You have room to show. My only thing is that I still believe, okay, whether people thinking that I'm wrong or not, is that the Bengals do act a little too, not mystical, but too cocky over their attitude towards winning. Yes, there's a time and there's a place. And I would like to see the Bengals be a little bit more professional leading into, because, leading into this AFC Conference Championship game. Because, yes, the Bengals have beaten the Chiefs multiple times recently. They've been on a nice 3-0 hot take over them. Yes, they have a lot of momentum going into this game, but they have yet to win anything yet. See, the Kansas City Chiefs have went to the Super Bowl, and the Kansas City Chiefs have beaten the 49ers and won the Super Bowl before. The Bengals have yet to win the Super Bowl yet. And until I think, okay, I will say this and I'll leave it off of this. I think until the Bengals, okay, go on and win the Super Bowl, and that could very well be this year. I don't think I think that they need to remain calm, keep their cool, and say, "Hey, we're still out here to win something." And don't overbreath. Sunday's game, they go on and they beat the Chiefs, brag a little bit, say, "Hey, we're back to the Super Bowl again," because not many teams who go into the Super Bowl and lose the first year go back again the next year. But hey, it's okay to be the bad guys. Makes you relevant, makes you it makes you that much more interesting. You are now a must watch team into the world's eyes. All right, we're wrapping up another show here on the Throw-In on a Thursday morning. Thank you guys for tuning in, and you guys, please make sure you guys stay safe out there for any snow flurries waiting, and we'll look forward to coming back tomorrow morning and wrapping up a wonderful rest of the week. Hit that like, share, subscribe button on our YouTube page. Give us a follow on our Twitter and Facebook page as well. And don't forget to download us and take us on the road. Don't miss a single segment by downloading us on all audio platforms. The Throw-In. My name is Justin. You guys are listening to the Throw-In. We'll see you guys tomorrow here on the TNC Sports Talk YouTube channel.